Okay, and our final presentation for Canada Rocks is a new private company, Midex Resources, that's based in Ontario, not too far from Frontier. When Winsome Resources was private, we were presenting the company to our audience, and we're seeking to identify other interesting early stage pre-IPO opportunities, and we think we found an interesting one here in Midex. David Jamieson is the CEO, and why don't you give us a little bit of your background, David, and then quickly an overview of Midex, and Rod, you'll ask you some questions. The company is currently private, has raised, actually, I don't know, how much have you raised, and what's the history of the company after telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Howard. Yeah, thanks for having us on. So essentially, as a private company, we've done 3 raises, just over $1 million each at about 10 cents. We started 2020, putting together some large projects in northwestern Ontario. My background is an exploration geologist. I'm based in Ontario. I've done a lot of work in the Abitibi and northwestern Ontario, Quebec, Nunavut, Northwest Territories. So dominantly, orogenic gold, greenstone, greenstone hosted gold deposits, base metal deposits, that type of thing. So, our original focus when we started in 2019, we started picking up large areas in northwestern Ontario that were prospective for multiple commodities, but dominantly gold. We ended up purchasing a gold mine in Favorable Lake area, and that put us right beside Frontier Lithium, as they were kind of the dominant player at that time in the belt. There's kind of 2 components. There's kind of a lithium belt, and then there's the rest of the greenstone belt, which is it's kind of a polymetallic situation there. There's a lot of gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc. So we kept pursuing, the large scale staking acquisition model, which put us in pretty good position in 2020. We had a lot of good lithium ground on strike with Frontier. And as things started to progress in 2021, we continued to stake. We raised a bit more money, acquired more ground. We looked in other areas of northwestern Ontario, Allison Lake, for example. There's another project we have, Onion Lake, down near Thunder Bay. And then we picked up something in the Abitibi called Case Lake East, which is beside Power Metals. And we're working on a couple more acquisitions.
So, David, in all of these types of things, in early startups, it's always important in our minds, for management to have skin in the game. I presume the management team, you guys own a fairly decent size of Midex?
Yeah, I think we're sitting at about 22-23% insider. So, of course, the initial round was friends and family. All the directors participated. We brought in some new directors in the first year. And then, in the subsequent 2 raises, we all wrote checks. We've kept our skin in the game. And, I think that's critical. We're extremely focused. And, it's kind of in our our DNA, these kind of things. When you develop projects, these things will succeed, with all our efforts and everybody pulling in the same direction. So, we truly believe in, the rising tide will lift all boats.
That's great. So the way I see it is you have 4 key land packages. They're all situated near existing lithium companies, some with decent resource sizes and exploration targets. So what area are you going to focus your attentions on first?
Well, it's going to be our Favorable Lake package, the one that's on strike with Frontier. We've put quite a bit of effort into that area already with First Nation consultations. We've done a little bit of field work. We're also working on a permit for our gold project over there. So it's kind of furthest along in terms of the efforts that we've put into it. We're on a winter road there, so the access there is a bit seasonal. But I think, the way it's set up, we've got a lot of good water access there, so we can use boats, etc. We'll have to use a helicopter sometimes. The rest of the properties are all very good road access, either highway plus logging road. So they're a little bit simpler. We've got pretty good First Nation relations in those areas. It's kind of one of our priorities when we pick areas to stake. We want to be in fairly solid areas in terms of First Nations and what we know, and then our existing relationships. So those ones are a little bit, we can kind of get on those at any time. And then we've got a couple of acquisitions coming that they will take some of our attention as well once we close them. So I think it's going to be a broad exploration push. And what we want to try and do is generate some really high priority drill targets over the summer. We're going to want to do a lot of basic boots on the ground, till, biogeochem, prospecting, etc., and generate as many good drill targets as we can.
So just looking at the activity around where that is and near frontier, there seems to be a lot of progress on infrastructure, specifically power and all-weather roads. So would that tie in well with your project? If you are finding a decent resource there, that could all align well by the time those initiatives are completed.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. So we've got the power line that's been under construction for 3 years now. I believe it'll be completed by the end of next year. And that provides grid power to a number of the First Nation communities in that area. That goes right through the middle of our project, cuts the claims almost in half. It's also gonna help with the road, because that corridor has had an environmental assessment done. The plan is to reroute the winter road to become an all-weather road, more or less following that power line corridor. One of the main bridges has been, it's been designed, and the EA has been complete. It's just waiting for kind of final approval and funding. And I think that's, the key thing is that the governments are getting behind us, both federal, provincial governments, and these are the things that they can do to help us. I mean, we're able to raise money on these projects. It's something we've asked that, we don't need necessarily government funding, but what we need is that infrastructure and capacity for First Nations to be improved. And that's essentially what they're doing, and they're fast tracking it. And that's something we haven't seen in the mining business in my career, where we've got such support from both provincial and federal governments in the mining sector.
That's great. Yeah, that's hugely helpful. So just, looking at your deck, you've earmarked a listing in the second quarter. Can you elaborate a bit on what exchange and what sort of capital structure you think is optimal to fund, your initial exploration and program and going a bit beyond that?
Yeah, that's right. So we've signed an LOI with the TSX Venture listed CPC. And so that's been underway for a number of weeks. We've had an initial discussion with the venture exchange. So, I think what we're going to look at coming up is, listings, it's going to be sometime in May. By the time we start trading, we're going to do a financing concurrent with that. The CPC has money in it. We have I think just under $1 million in our treasury. So, we're in pretty good shape that way. Yeah, and we'll begin marketing, seriously in about a month. Yeah, I think it's going to be, our focus is to have a very busy summer and get a lot of work done on our properties and evaluate as much ground as we can, as quickly as we can. And yeah, I think we can generate some really good drill targets here.
So when would initial drilling start then? Optimally?
We would probably take advantage of winter roads favorable, which pushes us into early 2024. Some of the other projects where we have good road access, I mean, we can, if we develop a top-notch target that's obvious, we should be in the areas that we're in. We should be able to permit them fairly quickly and get going. But we're not going to commit. What I prefer to do as an exploration geologist is to line up my drill targets and rank them, and then just drill the very best ones, the ones that I'm most excited about, and do, if the other ones aren't quite ready, if we need to do more work, then that's what we'll do. That's going to be our approach.
Okay, great. And then, of course, being in Canada, you'll be able to benefit from, once you're listed, from flow-through financing to do exploration.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's our intent. We can use the critical flow bonus. Charity. We've had some discussions on charity flow, etc. So, yeah, I think that is another thing that the government has done. They've tried to make as much as they can, create a financing environment that favors the exploration end of things, because honestly, we need a lot of new discoveries. It can't just be drilling off things that have been known to exist, and that's been proven. Just the volume of new spodumene deposits that are required. We have to make some new discoveries. We have to open up some new areas. So we're using some conceptual models in terms of what grassroots area might be favorable. So we continue to stake ground, and we continue to look at areas that may not have had lithium considerations for lithium potential in the past. And we're going to look at it. We're going to look at everything acquisition. It's a very dynamic space. Properties, I think, we were lucky to get off the mark early enough to pick up exceptional good exploration ground, and a lot of it. But now I think we're getting into where we're going to start seeing some deals being made. And as more data comes out of some of the exploration programs, we're going to see some either some new techniques, as well as new areas in Ontario.
And just looking at the maps in your deck and your proximity to some of the other established and existing players, is there any sort of synergy or collaboration you can do with those guys?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think we're definitely looking at those possibilities. Synergy, especially you get into situations where you're using, say we're using a helicopter. I mean, that's an obvious one. If you can save considerable amount of money by sharing hours or borrowing hours, depending on your needs. And then, yeah, some of the First Nations, we're collaborating. We're because we have kind of the same goals. We may be at a different level of exploration than Frontier, but it's still the same. You're still the same consultations. It's the same process. So yeah, I think we're trying to be preferred, kind of a preferred partner almost in terms of our ESG. We've had a strong focus on that. We bring that to the table. We know we're Ontario guys. We've got a lot of good insight and a lot of good contacts in the belt. So in the different belts that we're in. So yeah, I think collaboration makes a lot of sense. There's always that competitive edge, but I think, and this is maybe a little bit of a special case with lithium, in that there's such a long runway, or we're not dealing with these tight cycles where you have to get it the timing perfect, that collaboration, I think, is going to be important going forward.
Great. Well, David, thank you very much for this introduction to Midex, a very young company, not well known because you're not yet public, but look forward to tracking your progress and that May IPO. Thank you, David.